Well, okay, so you do all the things. So you're into tech, which is cool, and it's cool to see you running around with the tech crowd. But
Yes.
you also, your main thing is you make sneaker videos. And I was perusing your channel, and you
Yes.
have been doing this for over almost 10 years.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. So I started 10 years ago, but I was working for a publisher. So back in, I posted my first sneaker video on YouTube in March of 2010. And that didn't go so well. You know, it was a new thing. And then 2013, I started doing it on my own, and that's how we arrived here.
Because when I watch your videos, it almost seems like a proper newscast. It's very well produced. You're such a great presenter. And
Yes.
if you go back only maybe like only 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago on my channel, I'm very quiet and I'm more reserved. You know, I haven't found exactly my voice, but it seems like you've always had it. So you said you
Right.
started in music. Did that help with your stage presence? You were a rapper. So
Yeah.
was it kind of like a natural transition for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I don't know what I would be like on camera if I hadn't been a rapper, because it makes such a difference in because having been on stage, being booed, being applauded, being cheered, being jeered, like all of that stuff, it builds up a certain skill set. And I've been able to bring that to like the YouTube space because it's something that I just did. Like, you know, I had a microphone in my hand and it was my job to entertain people for 45 minutes. And so like that just translated very well to YouTube.
Well, how did you first get into music? Because I was a big electric guitar player. I was in a band. We would play to crowds of like 20 people. So it wasn't, that was like my side
But hey,
band. But then, you know, it's like, but then on the weekends, you know, I went to like a mega church. So that band was playing in front of like 4,000 people a weekend. So that was an entirely different experience.
dope.
So music, I think I attribute to a lot of my just figuring out problems. We were just talking about, hey, if you need to record, you can't go to a fancy studio. You got to figure out Logic. You got to figure out Pro Tools. You got to figure out how to get the perfect guitar tone because,
Yep.
oh, you can't just stick a mic in front of your amp. No, there's certain techniques and there's certain angles and there's certain plugins, like you said. So it seems like
Yep.
music is a really good place to start whenever you have, you know, a creative career. A lot of people say, oh yeah, I started music, you know? So how did
Yeah.
that transition happen,
Yeah.
going from a rapper to content and being a presenter?
So I started out in music, and you know, as with everybody, you know, your hopes and dreams of being a big superstar and all those things. I did an album. It sold like 5 copies, you know, that sort of thing. And so but I got really, really lucky. So a music supervisor for television and film happened upon my album, and he liked the songs. And so even though I was like trying to be this artist, he was like, hey, I think I can get your songs into television and film. And so I started doing a bunch of TV and film stuff. And from that, doing songs for TV and film, I actually got like an acting gig, and I was in a movie because of it. And then I got on a TV show, and I
Wow.
was on a TV show for it because of it. So I had like all of these things kind of happening. And then everything just went dry. Like for like 2 years, like nothing happened. I was still rapping and doing shows. I actually have to send you some stuff because I did. I started rapping with a live band instead of a
Oh,
DJ. So
cool.
it was me, a trumpet player, a bass player, a guitar player, and a drummer. And we made like this like rock fusion, hip hop, jazz music. It's pretty crazy.
Oh my
It
gosh,
was
I need
like
to listen.
probably like the most musically fulfilling.
Yeah.
It was probably like musically fulfilling. It was probably like the craziest and best thing that I've done musically so far. So I was still doing that, but then like I wasn't getting any gigs. I wasn't getting any acting gigs. Songs weren't being placed and stuff like that. And so I started writing about sneakers online. And when I was doing that, I started looking at some of the stuff that was online currently on YouTube. Again, this is 2010. So this was before like all the big shows and all the big publishers kind of got into YouTube and doing stuff. And because I had that background, I'd done some acting stuff because I'd done stuff on stage. My thought was, oh, okay, I'll do something on YouTube because that way people on TV will see me and know that I'm
It's a
still
stepping
doing
stone.
stuff, and
That's
that I'm
how
not
a
just
lot
like,
of people.
I haven't disappeared. It's a step.
Yeah. People on YouTube are like, okay, I'm going to start a YouTube channel so I can have a professional acting career.
So I could have a professional acting career. And that was my original thought with creating content. I was like, I'm writing about sneakers and I love sneakers and that's cool. But like, obviously I want to be an entertainer. Like that's where my heart is, to be an entertainer. And, I guess I'm an entertainer still, I guess, in that sense, but it's just, I just talk about sneakers and tech, and stuff like that. And so it started in 2010. I watched some videos on YouTube about how to edit and how to green screen. And then I went to Joann's Fabrics and bought a green blanket. Basically, I bought 2 of those like college dorm room lights from Target that have like the 3 lights on them at the top.
Wait, were they bendy? Like the bendy ones?
No, it's not even the bendy ones. It's just like they just go up and down. Like it's just like,
okay.
They just rotate up and down. Like there's 3 at the top. It's like 3
and that
spotlights
was your setup.
basically.
Yeah.
That was my setup, and I was in the garage with an overhead light on that was like yellow, and then the lights were blue. But I was doing my best thing, and I shot it, and that ended up on YouTube with my little weird man mustache and everything. And that was 10 years ago, and it just kind of just grew from there. I just started watching stuff. Like I give like major props to like Indie Mogul, because like I learned everything that I knew about production from them way back then, and that's really what got me into creating content. And I just kind of just learned and picked up stuff from there.
So what were the 2 years like where you thought you had momentum and you were doing your thing? Okay, music, acting, this is great. It seems like a plethora of opportunity. And I imagine, were you on the West Coast during that time? Was it centered around LA?
So I've always been in LA. I was born and raised here in LA.
Oh, dope.
So
okay.
I've had the benefit of being a Los Angeles guy my whole life.
Yeah. Love that. So what was it like when all of it stopped?
Well, I mean, it's obviously super tough, because like you're going to auditions and then you're not getting the job, and then you're seeing like people that are at the audition, see them get the job, and you're seeing them on TV. So like there's that crazy level of frustration that happens with that. And, you just trying to, I think like anybody else, you just kind of adapt. Like, all right, cool. This is not it. What am I going to do? I taught at a school for a little while. Like I taught electronic music production at a school for a few years, in that process. That's where I actually, oddly enough, that's where I met Tyler, the creator. He was one of my students in my electronic music class.
Hello. Okay. So you're saying that you made Tyler the creator. That's what you're saying. Wow.
No. He was already, he was already super dope back then. Like he was already shooting like his own music videos and doing stuff that I didn't even know how to do.
I mean, what was that like as like a teacher student relationship where you're just seeing this dude being just incredible? How do you even did you just let him do his thing? I mean, that's insane.
Yeah. I mean, really, that's what it was. It was like, it was one of those situations where you provide guidance and not necessarily teach, where you're just kind of showing him like, okay, like you have this incredible skill set. Your mind already works in a way that's kind of built for this already. So it's more of just guidance, like, try this instead of doing this, like this, like try something new, like step outside of your comfort zone and do this, use these plugins, try this instrument, try arranging it this way, like those kind of things. Cause he already had the basic fundamentals of creating music down. It was just a matter of pushing him to look outside of his circle, and create things that he wouldn't have necessarily thought of.
Yeah. Speaking of that, who are some musicians that you see kind of looking from the outside who get it, who get this new world? Because there's so many. I mean, I think being a musician has always been the hardest creative field to actually make a job. And both of us have I guess failed, right? We're not musicians right now. Like I wasn't going to say that, but hey, I thought I was going to like tour with Paramore or something. I thought I was going to be like a freaking rock star, guys. And I'm making tech YouTube videos, but I'm so interested in that world, and I'm sure you are too. And who are some people that you think are just crushing it? And what are they doing that's unique? Because I'm sure there's so many people also who listen to this pod who maybe want to make music their job, but it's tough. Getting those Spotify streams, getting the 25-cent checks for a couple thousand streams. It's tough out there.
I have such a beef with streaming music, but let's not even get into that.
It could be a whole other podcast.
But I think honestly, it's a totally different podcast. I don't think there's anybody in particular that's really popping out to me that's doing anything that's crazy. I think that it's more of like you just have the ability to do so much more now on your own and really kind of create your own sort of wave, for lack of a better word. Like, even though like I was able to record myself back then, we didn't really have distribution. Like, there was no SoundCloud back then. There was no Spotify or Apple Music. It was like you burn a CD and give somebody a CD that wants to listen to your music. There were MP3s, but like everyone didn't have a place to play MP3s at the time, or AAC if you had an iPod. Like, no one had that ability back then. It was all like you put a CD into your machine. So yeah, and it was hard to get music to people back then. Now you can send somebody a link and they can listen to your whole album. Back then, if you send somebody a link to listen to your whole album, it would take them a day to just download the album, first of all.
Lots of friction.
Because the internet was so slow.
Yeah.
So I would say for people that today, like, just ride your own wave. You have the ability to create. You can shoot a music video using your phone. Like, you can record with your phone. Like, you can do everything really to create an entire album. You can create Photoshop. You can do the pictures. You can Photoshop the pictures. You can shoot the music video. You can create the music. You can record the music. You can, mix and master the music. It won't be perfect, but it'll be better than anything that I could have done 10 years ago. So you have the power in your hands. You can create an Instagram, Twitter, you can create a SoundCloud, you can create a Snap, you can do all of those things now. You have all of that power in your hands. It's a matter of you creating good music and marketing yourself. So if anything, maybe take some marketing classes about how to get yourself out there and how to get the music out there.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost like we're all playing a very similar game, whether you're a YouTuber or a musician. Really, we're all using very similar channels, whether it's YouTube, and again, I know people hate saying the word content, but we're all just out here creating the content. It's a little different if you're a musician, but it's crazy to see creating the content, but it's crazy to also see all of these musicians and how they're playing a show in Fortnite. They're doing a collab with McDonald's. They have their own, it's not merch, but it's a streetwear brand, right? And essentially we're all just our own little hubs of business and influence, and it's really like you kind of have to do a little bit of everything, and that's intimidating to people, right? But I think it increases in startup world, they always talk about what's your moat. Okay, you made a product, but what's going to make Johnny over there not just copy your product? So you have to build that moat, whether it's your personality or it's a really special program that no one else can code. And I think, the musicians who are succeeding, they are building that moat, because they're not just in Fortnite, but maybe they're streaming and they're doing all these things. It's crazy to watch. It's fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I mean, we're perfect. I think we're a perfect example of that, because we have to do everything. Like, we've made it to a point now where we're lucky enough that we can hire people to help us. But there was a period, I'm 10 years in, eight of those years, it was just me. And like, I was shooting, I was editing, I was lighting, I was ideating, I was, creating the music. I was doing everything on my own. So, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. I needed to learn Photoshop. I still suck at it, but I'm okay. I can do enough to get things done. I had to teach myself to edit. I had to watch YouTube videos. I had to download Ripple training tutorials. I had to download tutorials from Mac Pro Video and go through and learn all these things and make mistakes. I had to learn how to use all of these different programs in order for me to be where I am today. So like, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Like, don't be like, oh, well, I just make music. I'm an artist and all I can do,
like a purist.
All I do is sing. All I do is sing. Yeah, all I do is sing. That is my gift. Like, okay, that's cool. And some people can make it that way. Some people do, but for most of us, You have to sing, but you also have to produce, and you have to learn how to mix and master. And you also need to learn how to upload to Spotify, and you also need to learn how to upload to SoundCloud, and you also need to look at analytics. So
and I recently listened
God
to
bless you if you can sing.
Yeah, exactly. I recently listened to a podcast with Tim Ferriss and Sia, and she was talking about the logistics of the recording business, and kind of once you get to a certain point of success, you can pick and choose, right, what you want to do. And it was so fascinating to hear her explain that, okay, the difference between writing the melody, but then also writing the lyrics to that melody is a completely different thing, and how they split on publishing and the 50-50 and the lane that she's carved out for herself. It was a fascinating listen. I'll link it in the show notes below. But she is someone who has done so much, whether it's writing, being her own musician, but also like keeping her anonymity. Is that a word? Keeping her, because very rarely do you see her face.
Anonymity, yeah.
I think that's a word, right? Sorry, I'm just talking about a ton of musicians, but it's been cool to see people's journeys, and truly in the beginning you have to do it all. But speaking to that, you mentioned that you just you have some help now, and when I watch your videos, I'm like, oh, there's a lot going on. It's like a proper newscast, right? You have videos popping up, pictures all the time. Sometimes you're using a green screen, sometimes you're using your background. And what has that process been like, kind of hiring out? And do you have an exact Final Cut template or a thing that's the same every time? Because I always like to ask people, because my delegation journey has been a long one and a tough one, but I'm kind of on the other side. So how do you do it, Jacques?
I respect that. 100%.
Yeah.
It's still a journey. It's still a process, I'll say. But the way, so like for the talk show thing, I still edit that 100% myself. But I have a writer that helps me with the content for the show. I'm still doing the editing, but I also work with the editor, and he's pretty familiar with my style now of how I tend to like to edit things. At first, I was very much in the lane of like, this is how I would edit it. So I'd like you to kind of edit it this way.
Perfectionist. Do it exactly the way I tell
felt
you.
like, yes. Yeah. But I felt like that almost kind of prevented him from being experimental and adding his own like creative touches to it. And so I started to kind of back away and just let him do an edit and see how it came out, especially for like the unboxings, because he's actually shooting a lot of the B-roll now. For the edits as opposed to the way I do it. And like, even with that experience where I was kind of like, hey, I'll let you shoot the B-roll. Like, I usually shoot it this way. This is what I do. Like, I noticed he started to kind of do his own thing. And in addition to doing what I was doing, he would add his own flares to it. And so I was like, okay, perfect. Like that makes me comfortable that I can step away. He's getting what I would expect, but he's also adding his own creative touches to it. And so I started to step away. But at the same time, I am probably over his shoulder more than I need to be, just because our businesses are so personal, and so it's hard not to want to have your hand in everything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, but you have to let go in order for you to grow, and that's just a hard thing. Even like when I first got like management and somebody to help me like on the business side of things, I was still very much like, okay, this email came in today. Let's talk about it. This is how I would handle it. This is what I think, kind of thing. But eventually I started to let go, and like, I don't really like check in on emails anymore.
Yeah, you gotta let go if you need
have
to grow.
like, yeah, I still have things kind of filtered through an email address that I can check if I wanted to, but I don't. You know what I mean? I've stepped away from like being in part of that everyday thing.
No, that's good. That's the one thing that I was like, you got to take it all, because, I started to be somewhat in the beginning like, oh no, if we miss one deal, that's like leaving money on the table. But now you get so busy. It's just like, if stuff keeps coming through, I'm not going to stress about, the few that fall through the cracks. Cause it's like, we just got to keep this train rolling.
Yeah.
And if you stop and nitpick every single thing, that's not good. That's just going to ruin everything.
It's not good. You can't.
You can't do it.
I'm happy with a high level overview at this point.
Yes, high level overview. No, I love it. And so with sneakers, you're a sports guy too, obviously. In these news shows, it spans a lot of different topics. But I played sports in high school. I played basketball, so I love basketball. But I fell off like watching it probably like the moment I stopped playing in high school. So I still occasionally love to play, but I just don't watch any sports. So it's really fascinating I would love to get your take on what sports are doing right now, because people love to analyze things, and on Twitter all the time there's like, oh, the NBA viewership is down 55% and the NFL is down blah blah, and MLB has been, I'm sorry, y'all have been on the way out for a while, and a lot of that I feel like stemmed from their over obsession with content, not allowing memes on the internet because they own everything. It's interesting to see MLB and NBA. I feel like NBA thrived and MLB just gradually goes down because NBA, I think, embraces clips on Twitter, put anything everywhere, and then the MLB takes down everything, which has been interesting. But what's the deal with sports right now? Yeah. Why does no one care?
I think a generation is growing up that has entertainment in other places, and a lot of us that are slightly older, our generation, like sports and movies were your entertainment for the most part. Like YouTube wasn't as big of a thing, and neither was Instagram or neither was Twitter. Like I think a lot of our attention is in other places. Like we didn't have all of these things to hold our attention before, and now we do. So we have, we have other places, and kudos to the NBA for kind of embracing the digital age, which sounds weird to say, but embracing that and being open to the memes and all of that sort of stuff and content going everywhere. And I think that the MLB is going to be like, I feel like they're treating it like the music industry. And instead of jumping in and really being like aggressive and understanding what's going on,
hold
and
on
taking
to
part
the
in
past
it and making it a part of your business. Yeah, they try to hold on to the past for sure. So I'm happy with what they're doing, and I think I think sports they're going to settle out. I think right now is just a transition period, and I think things will settle and people will start to adjust. I think people are just adjusting to where their time is going to be spent, and the value of watching a game or being live at a game is going to find its place. It's just not there at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Do you see that there is a shift from, instead of people being 100% committed to one team, do you see the shift going towards more to personalities and players, like a LeBron James? Okay, I'm going to follow him wherever he goes,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think before, again, and this is the kind of thing with the digital age now, you can follow that person more now. Like you have more access to them. Like before, if you were a Cleveland fan, like you didn't really have access to any other players. You may have heard about them when they come to your city, but outside of that, you didn't really have a way to follow them and see what they were doing because you weren't getting games and things like that. But now, if you want to follow LeBron, you can follow LeBron. You can follow him everywhere. You know what I mean? You can follow him on Twitter. You can follow him on Instagram, and then you can follow him on TV and all the things that he's doing. Like that's why Michael Jordan is so much different than everybody else, because he was just like this mythical figure. You know what I mean? So like, and you didn't have access to him. So it allowed the legend of him to grow so much inside of your brain, inside of your whole spirit was just like, Michael Jordan is a god. Like you didn't have access to him. And then when you did see him, it was on TV doing these amazing things.
Yeah. And you're just like, oh, it's all true.
Right.
What a freaking legend, God, that documentary was so good.
That documentary / Michael Jordan propaganda piece, it was what it was. That was pure like MJ propaganda.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they only made that because they got the go ahead from Michael, right? So I'm sure he had some influence on it.
Right.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that was the only piece of content that I've ever watched where I literally immediately turned it off, didn't want to watch the next episode, and just got to work. I was like, okay, time to edit a video. It's like, It's like, yes.
That's funny. Let's go.
You know,
that's funny.
So it is cool to be, you know, to see from the outside. I keep up with players, but very rarely do I watch the games. And I feel like also it's a little bit of a disconnect to where I get everything through social media. I don't have TV. Like I don't know where to watch sports. Like I don't have Fox and CBS and like how do people even watch sports? ESPN. I don't have ESPN. We're talking about friction. It's like there's still friction in the process of even viewing them. So it's like if you want me to watch the playoffs, you got to stick it at the top of my Twitter feed or I'm not going to see it.
Right. And that's true. And I think that speaks to like there's a generation that just doesn't have cable. Like everybody had cable before. And a lot of people don't have cable anymore. I have, you know, HBO Max and that's it. Or whatever it is, or Disney Plus, or Apple TV Plus, or whatever it is. Like that's all I have. I don't have all of these other things anymore because I don't need them and I don't want them. Like so, it's a shift in how people operate. And I think they'll adjust. I think things will adjust and things will start to be available in other places. What I'm worried about and what I kind of don't like is how segmented everything is becoming. How there's 1,000 different places that like we have our streaming network and we have our streaming network
and
it's
all of
just
these
becoming
things.
Cable all over again.
I've always said that we're literally it's going to be a circle. Everyone is going to have their streaming network and then someone's going to come along and be like, we need to bundle this and it's only going to cost like $100 a month and you get 50 channels. And then we're going to be like, this is cable. This is what we just had. What's going on here? Maybe the difference is it'll be better.
It's just going to be like the Spider-Man meme.
The Spider-Man meme.
It'll be the Spider-Man meme.
Exactly. I mean, at least out of all this, we have, you know, we can watch it on our phones or whatever, you know, iPad. And I guess that's what good will come out of it. But I feel the fatigue too. I mean, what have you been watching? I've been watching Ted Lasso. I have the Apple TV. Have you watched Ted Lasso yet?
I haven't watched Ted Lasso yet, but I've seen a lot of people talking about it, and so I feel like good. I need to. Well, first, I don't watch a lot of TV. I'm usually on YouTube, like oddly enough, which is weird. Mm-hmm. But I've been dipping back into. So I'm a big Star Trek fan. So the wife and I have been watching old episodes of Voyager. So like that's what we do like at night and before we go to bed, we just watch old episodes of Star Trek Voyager, and we're watching from like season 1 through like all of the seasons, and we're like on season 3 right now. So that's what we've been doing lately. Before that, what were we watching? I think we were watching, the new Star Trek that was on CBS All Access. So it's really my sci-fi. So anything sci-fi is really what I love to watch. So I'm all into that. We watched Black AF on Netflix. That was really good. We enjoyed that.
I was and the
lighting, I don't know. Sorry if you.
Oh my God, the production of that show, like the pacing yes. and the way it blew my mind. And it, you know, it kind of makes you just like a little disoriented because it is so different, but I enjoyed, it was just fresh. I don't know. I really enjoyed how they shot that and how it was produced. Yeah.
The way it shot, the producing, and then like those interview setups were so good. Like they were lit so well. Like,
and then
I
you
was
saw
rewatching
it too.
Episodes and pausing it, being like, okay, exactly. What are they doing with this light setup? I was like, how are they doing this?
Okay, they're showing the behind the scenes. So what do they have here? And like, how do I do that? Yeah, it was really cool.
Yep.
It seemed new. Yeah, I've been watching all of my old TV shows because I feel like I need some nostalgia when the world's going crazy. I kind of need to I'm watching like One Tree Hill and stuff, just like the really cheesy, dramatic teen drama. And it brings me back. It brings me back to a time where there was no corona. There was no people yelling at people on Twitter.
Actually, I think I had a song on One Tree Hill for an episode.
Are you kidding me?
I have to go look back.
Tell me how that worked.
I have to go look at my so again, that music supervisor, I was doing, like, I did the album, and so they liked a lot of the songs, and so they would just take them and put them on TV shows. It was like, oh, they need a hip hop song in this scene. Cool, we have this guy. He has these songs. Here's these songs. Or sometimes it would be like custom songs. Yeah. Wow. And sometimes it was custom songs. So like for the movie Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox Story. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
I haven't.
With John C. Reilly, where he's kind of parodying. He's like it's like a parody film. And they wanted a custom song where like the rapper takes this 60s guy's song and makes like this raunchy version of it. And so like I did like a really extremely terribly raunchy version of his song where I sampled his song. It was like a custom song. It's terrible. Don't ever listen to it, Sarah. It's like,
I mean, we're all going to Google it now, aren't we?
No. So it was like, just to give you a premise before you listen, because I want you to be prepared for this. There was like, all right, we need a really terrible, like really raunchy, sexually explicit song. And I was like, okay. And so I wrote the song and I turned it in, and there was like, okay, we need it to be worse. Like we need it to be raunchier. And I was like, okay. And so I literally thought of like, what are the worst things you can say on a song? And so I wrote those things. I made them rhyme, and I put them into two 16-bar sections. And I turned that in, and they were like, this is perfect. This is what we wanted. Oh
my gosh.
And so now you've been officially warned that when you listen to it, it's the raunchiest thing you've probably ever heard.
So it'd probably it'd probably get our video demonetized, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, definitely can't be in this video. No.
That is so funny.
There's going to be a lot of bleeping.
Oh my gosh, what a journey you've had. And it's cool because I feel like there's some parallels in between the tech space and sneaker space, because not only are you friends with everyone, but aren't you in that same office space as Jonathan too?
No. So I don't work with them. I just visit. I just go over there and visit. Like John and I are really good friends.
Gotcha. For some reason, I thought your space was in that space.
Oh no. My space is just in my house.
Okay. Dope. Yeah. Awesome. Oh, that's cool. It doesn't look like it's in your house. So you did a good job with that. That was always a challenge, like trying to make where you live look professional, you know. With that, and you being on the platform for 10 years, I'm sure you've been able to see a lot of your YouTube friends doing their thing, and you've seen them evolve, and you've evolved yourself. What has been the biggest change that either you've had, you know, maybe it's been natural or it was more intentional, that you had to do over the past decade as the platform changed? Because as you know, things change all the time for better or worse. What has been that journey with your content?
I think the way that I think things have shifted is that you really see that anyone can create like their own thing, and like there's a space for everything. Like, even though YouTube's been around for 10 years, like I would say it's really within the last 2 or 3 years that you really see people just being able to be who they are and be successful at it, and people be more accepting of it. I think that's the biggest shift. It's just how welcoming the rest of the world is to people just being themselves and being you, and allowing people to be creative in that space and create what they need out of that space. I think that's awesome. It's almost like it was such a big deal for Will to get on social media and to do all of that stuff. But I think it's a bigger deal that you see all of these different communities being able to share their voices and speak their truths, and people be accepting of that and understanding. And I think it creates more empathy, and it creates a world where we all get a better understanding of others and the struggles that others go through, and then how much we are all alike. Yes, I'm into tech and sneakers, but there's somebody out there that's just as into like toys and stamps, and like that's perfectly fine, and that's okay, and there's an audience for that.
Yeah, I mean, all the niches are so cool. And it has been interesting to see all of these celebrities kind of flood the socials. And I mean, honestly, I feel like Will Smith is the only person who has actually done it right. And it's been, I know some people who work on his team at the Glenbrook or Glen, whatever his company is called, where he uses all
Overbrook,
the...
Overbrook,
oh, yes,
Overbrook.
there you go. There you go. And it sounds like there is just a genuine love for creativity and figuring out how to tell stories in a fresh and compelling way, and embracing other creators to, you know, come along with the journey, and also making things that are contextual to the platforms. Because you see a lot of people come on the scene and they try to either go super, super, super fancy, or they just like whip out their phone and it's the most boring ish that you've ever seen. And they don't kind of understand the actual things that thrive on specific platforms. Instagram is different than Twitter. Twitter is obviously different than YouTube. YouTube is a beast of its own. And so it's been, Will has just been crushing it.
Someone that has been doing a really good job of doing like the very, very fancy stuff, but making it appropriate for the platform is Kevin James.
Oh my God. Yes. I just watched this like nature documentary one.
Yes. Oh, yes.
It's so funny.
So good.
Yeah. He's a good,
he's done a really
I forgot
great
about
job
him.
of kind of adapting.
It's so funny. We have like a delay. So it's like,
I know.
He's talking and it's so funny. I wonder do you think it's because do you think it's the airplay thing?
I don't know. I don't know what the delay is, because like I can see you talking and I start talking immediately after you stop. But I don't know if it's the delay coming back to you is what it is, because I'm using like the ATM Mini Pro for like the camera so you can see. Okay. And I don't know if maybe that's causing a little bit of a delay.
This is
because
interesting.
It's HDMI maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll have to consult Gerald Undone to diagnose it. But yeah, it's the first time that I feel like on Zoom I've had to actually be like, okay, don't say anything until they're 100% done talking. Rona times, man.
We'll work it out. We'll get it to work.
Yeah. Luckily, Fraser's who's editing this. Good luck. Thank goodness I'm not editing it.
Shout out Fraser. Shout out to Fraser.
Hello.
So how many people are you working with?
Yeah, so let's see. It's been a mess, but lately I have consolidated it to a few now, instead of being like, hey, you 10 people, like try to do this and then I won't talk to you for months and then maybe I'll text you again. It hasn't been the best experience, but I got my ish together and I became obsessed with productivity and, I found tools that worked for me, and I'm sure you've seen that I just tweet about Notion all the time, and it really helped being obsessed with tech and being obsessed with, cool stuff like that. It was a flip that switched when I found tools that were actually like fun to use, because I was using Asana, I was using all these other things, and they never clicked for me. So once I had a tool that clicked and it was fun, it was kind of like, oh, game over. Like this is cool. You felt the momentum. I was better at communicating and planning. So I have one editor who does like 40% of my YouTube main channel. I still do a lot of them just because, as we talked, it's hard to not be a perfectionist about things. And I think I want to shift that.
Preaching to the choir.
Yep. I think I want to shift that to more, they take most of it, but then I'll reserve time for like the final cut, because what I'm learning is very rarely can I just 100% send it off to them hands off. So I think if I can get better at shooting, uploading every time, just go for it. And then we have a process now with Google Drive where I can kind of just like hop in and do maybe that final 10% and make sure that I always have the final say. That kind of gives me peace of mind, because everyone's different. You have to figure it out for everyone. And then the podcast is completely, I have an awesome person, Drayton, who does all the social and the memes. He's in the freaking like Bahamas. And I found him because he made a Sarah Peachy meme account. And I was like, dude, I don't have a job for you, but like, you're so creative. Can you just like do what you're doing on the meme account, but do it for that creative life? And I was like,
Oh,
I
wow.
guess I'll just like pay you and you make memes and just go for it. And so he's done a really good job in shifting into more social content too. So that I have a studio manager
That's
now.
amazing.
Yeah. So I think it's all about just giving people chances, and whoever shows the most initiative, I'm just like, yes, you, perfect.
That's amazing. I definitely need to get there. I'm right now. I have a co-writer that I work with for What's Poppin' and for Hard Pass, and then I have an editor that I work with. I I need someone that can handle like social stuff. Like that's amazing. Like to cut stuff down for you, and that does it. Like because that's been the problem that I have. Like I found people that are on social that could do it, but like they don't know how to edit, or they don't cut stuff down, or they don't do any of that. But it's like if I'm gonna do that, I was like I might as well just post it to Twitter myself. I might as well do it. But then I end up never ever actually doing it, and so that puts on a whole nother set of problems.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole. It's
Yeah.
so involved, and I'll keep you in the loop too, because I'm also building this program with a business partner of mine, and I've slightly told the internet about it. It's called Switchboard, and it's going to help with all that stuff. So I'll keep you in the loop. I'll put you on my list, and hopefully it'll help you with all of that Twitter and Instagram content and micro content. So soon.
I love how one thing I do really appreciate about you is how you think so much broader than what like YouTube and the tech stuff directly. Like you're into all of these other things, and it's really refreshing to see that, and it's something that I definitely respect about what you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's almost like you got to do it to keep it interesting, because I don't know about you, and I've been doing it for a shorter amount of time, but do you ever get bored? How do you keep it fresh?
I think that's why I'm so into like the tech world is because like it's something by extension, it's something that I should be into, but like obviously my focus is sneakers. And so when if I'm creating a video or if I'm creating some sort of content that doesn't necessarily excite me, I have sort of like this tech spin to it where I kind of feel like, oh yeah, but I'm shooting with this cool camera and I'm trying out these cool profiles, or I'm going to try this lighting technique, or I'm going to try this interview setup. So all of those things I think are what keep it exciting for me and continually push me to keep me growing. Or, oh, I'm going to try and tell a story this way. I'm going to try and tell a story that way. So all of those things I think are what make it all and keep it interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. And you have to find things that are, whether it's, a genre, or because tech is always evolving. There's always new toys to play with. So whether it's your genre or, the different styles of videos you're creating, that's what I found too is, any way that I can keep things fresh helps, because sometimes when you're on your like fourth laptop review and you're just kind of doing the same thing, there's a moment where you're like, what am I doing? I need a little bit more excitement.
What is this? Yes. Yeah. And you guys, and see from the outside looking in, I'm like, oh man, these guys get all of the coolest things that I would love to play with. And it's so cool that they get to do all of this sort of stuff. But I get it, because kids think the same thing about me with all the sneakers and stuff. And I'm just like, well, now I have a storage unit that I have to pay for. So like, no, it's not as cool. It's not as cool as you think. I have too many. It's too many.
Yeah. Well, what is that
but,
like?
I definitely realize I'm in a beautiful space. What do you mean?
Yeah. With because tech, it's always a mixture of companies sending it to you, but then you also buying things. Is it a similar flow with sneakers, or do you have reps at each company and they know like you're on the list and they just send it through? Because I'm sure that's more of a crazy space, in that sometimes if you have a certain shoe, oh my gosh, you're like one of only 20 people and people are selling it aftermarket for thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy over there in sneaker land.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty similar to tech in certain ways. Like I think like you get stuff early. Same thing. I get stuff early to do a review on, and so like I'll have it a couple of weeks before. I follow embargoes just like like the tech world follows embargoes. All of that stuff is pretty similar. I would say the biggest difference is that sneakers are more limited than tech is.
Right.
Like the goal of tech is we want everybody in America to have one of these, or everybody around the world to have one of these.
Yeah, link
Whereas
in bio.
with sneakers, there are there are some sneakers like that, but for the most part, the stuff that people get excited about is super limited, and only a certain amount of people will get them, whether that's they make 1,000 pairs or 10,000 pairs or 100,000 pairs. Like it's limited. So like hype and the thought of something selling out is now a part of like the marketing plans of sneaker companies. So selling out is used as a marketing tactic, basically. Unlike tech, where like Apple wants everybody to have an iPhone, and we're gonna keep making them until they say they don't want them no more. Whereas with sneakers, they'll make a Jordan 1, they'll make 100,000 Jordan 1s, and they won't make them again for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting to see when we were planning this podcast, I was like, what are you stoked about? And you mentioned that you're getting more into finance and stocks. And it's been so interesting to see sneakers as their own asset class themselves. And it's fascinating to see what will
Right.
double, triple, quadruple in price. Oh my gosh. And you look up maybe 10 years later and you got an old box of Jordans in your closet. And then you look on StockX or one of these websites and be like, oh, well, this is kind of crazy. How is that?
Yeah.
Maybe this is the wrong question, because I'm like, how is this sustainable? Because as a business, you want to make money. And then the people who are making money are the ones who are selling it on StockX, not the company. But then I guess, you have to play into that, because that's what people want. They want the hype. It just seems confusing in my brain from a business standpoint.
So the brands, they're making their money when they sell to the reseller, quote unquote. So like they've already made their money. And with sneakers are typically priced like anything else, like double whatever, like the manufacturing cost. So that's generally so brands are making their money already. And the resale market is just kind of the resale market. They can't really determine. You don't know what's going to sell or what's going to resell unless there's some sort of hype behind it. And that's when things have some sort of resale value. And so like brands, I don't think brands are going to get in on the resale market, just because I think it presents some like logistics legally wise that they can't really get into. And consumers being like, oh yeah, of course these sold out, so you could resell them. So of course you're going to sell them out fast. So like I think there's that whole angle that they have to navigate if they're going to get into that space. But then there's also the fact that like brands make the majority of the money that sneaker brands make isn't from these hyped shoes. Like the hyped shoes are just like the marketing aspect of things. That's like 10, maybe
high
20%
level
of the bottom line.
Brand awareness. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, brand awareness, that kind of stuff. The other 80% is the stuff that you buy at warehouse shoe sale, or you buy at JCPenney, or you buy at Costco, or wherever it is. Like these general release sneakers is where these brands are making all of their money. The hype is just what's keeping their name in the headlines. So I don't think they're looking at the resale market as a revenue stream. I think they're just more looking at it as kind of a part of doing business. And for them, what they do is they just raise prices on the hyped product to go closer towards that resale demand. So for instance, Jordan 1s used to be like $160 for like the last 5 or whatever years. Now they're $170. So brands are just slowly pricing up. Jordans used to be $160 or $170. Now they're $190 to $225, depending on who's making the shoe, if it's a collab or the materials and all that stuff. So brands they're dipping into the resale market, but they're doing it through their retail presence.
As we wrap things up, tell me what you're excited about. What's something that you're just like, man, this is cool. I need to shout it from the rooftops.
I'm obviously a lot more on YouTube. I'm listening to a lot more music. If I'm going to give anybody a cosign, I just found this guy named Jacob Collier on YouTube, and he is just out of this world. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but his musicality, if that's, is musicality a word? Am I allowed to say musicality?
Yeah. Totally.
His musicality, his musicianship. There you go. His musicianship is really next level. He's really dope. So I've been watching a lot of his stuff. I think music is just kind of where I've just been kind of finding my peace outside of like working, like, because this is a job and working, I'm starting to look at music as kind of like my way of kind of releasing and letting go and relaxing and just finding joy in that, and like listening to harmonies and chords and chord progressions and being fascinated by that kind of stuff.
I love that. Yeah. Do you miss it? Are you ever just like, man, maybe I wish I was playing a show instead of making a YouTube video right now? Nothing compares to playing a show.
So much.
The feeling of being on stage and just like jamming out with your homies is probably the most, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, it's incredible, especially when you have the audience and the audience is there with you and they're following like every movement. They know the lyrics to a song. They know the changes in the song. They know a breakdown. So they know like that everything with you, and like you're up there and you're going, and you know it's this, and like they're rocking with you. It's just like, it's almost like this crazy energy of everybody being like in the same moment, same space and time at the exact same time, thinking the exact same things, and they're just like rocking with you. There's very few things that I've seen that amount to that. I was watching this video last night about a guy trying to be a comedian, and he was doing a bunch of open mics, and then like obviously for the finale he finally did a show that went well, and he was saying that like after the second time, like the second joke and the audience was fully in and laughing at his joke, he was like, I thought I was Dave Chappelle. Like it took 30 seconds for me to feel like Dave Chappelle because of the way the audience was vibing with me, which is crazy.
That's awesome. I can't imagine what it takes to be a stand-up comedian. Music is at least one of those things that you can prepare for, and you know, like, okay, we're either going to play well or not. It's up to the audience. But stand-up comedy seems like, oh my gosh, it's a new thing with every audience, and it's 100% dependent on if you're a funny person. Oh my gosh, that seems so intimidating.
Well, I mean, you've been on stage. I feel like because we've been on stage, we at least have an idea of what it's like.
I will say, because when you're on stage,
but even with like
giving a talk, you can be that YouTuber who's giving advice, but then also, oh, it's cool if they're funny. People don't expect you to be funny. So it's good when it's like, oh, this and this and that. And then like, oh, there's a laugh. Like that is fun. But people don't expect you to be like, be funny.
Yeah. Make me laugh, human person. But I would say though, as a musician though, you see how you get better the more you perform on stage, and so you kind of have an idea what's going to work versus what's not. I imagine, and I'm saying this totally ignorant, I imagine comedy is the same thing. Like the more you do it, the more you have a feel for what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Yeah. No, definitely. I've been watching a lot of podcasts of comedians and stuff, and this dude, his name is Tim Dillon. He's so crazy, but his comedy is just taking sarcasm to just the ultimate, just being as sarcastic as you possibly can. And I think I've found definitely my vibe. I've never really listened to stand-up comedians, but I'm like, oh, if people can just take the craziness of the world and just be super sarcastic to a point where you don't know if they're being serious or not, I think I've found that that's my jam. Because it's depressing out there, but we got to make fun of it.
Yeah, I feel like comedians are like songwriters. Huh. I feel like those two worlds are pretty close. Like, because you're creating something, and especially as a rapper, because as a rapper you're writing so many more words than you would if you're writing like a ballad. And so I think part of hip hop and rap is that you have to be witty, you have to be like charming, and I think that's part of being a comedian as well, is like that same energy, bringing that same energy to it.
Oh, 100%.
Maybe I'm just making this up. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I love it. Well, thank you for chatting with me. Where can the people find you if they're too lazy to go down in the show notes? Where are you?
In the show notes. I am all over the internets under Kusto, which is Kustoo. All the places: Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Grinder,
Love it.
Bumble, all those places.
Good. You still do Snapchat?
Yeah, I actually have a show on Snapchat on the Discover page.
You're fancy. I love that. I love to hear that. Okay. Well, maybe I should venture over into Snapchat again.
I wouldn't call it fancy.
But I love it.
Can I just share you my engagement? My engagement on Snapchat is so much higher than anywhere else. Literally anywhere else. Like, hold on. Where's my phone? Where is my phone?
Yeah, give us the deets.
I just put up a story on Snapchat last night. I have like 114,000 views and I have about 160,000 followers.
Oh my! Who are you people on the Snapchat?
That's typical engagement.
I didn't know people were still on there.
Crazy.
I guess it helps to have a show.
It's crazy. Like it does help to have a show, but even still, I think before I had the show, when I was talking to them about the show, I started just being more active on it. And their thing was like, if you create 5 pieces of content within the app, like it's really weird. Like you have to create content within the app. Like you can't import something from somewhere else. If you do 5 pieces, approximately 5 pieces a day, like your engagement just grows. Like they push that. Like they push people that are using the app actively, and they start pushing your content more and more and more. Like I've had stuff do like 1 million views on Snapchat off of like the $160 followers that I have, and like it's growing. Like for the last 3 months, it's been growing like crazy. So I'm posting probably 2 or 3 times a week, just doing like a video. 5, like just literally just 5 pieces of content, take a couple of pictures within the app and posting, and like the engagement is crazy. I don't like, there's nowhere else that it's doing that, unless you get like viral on TikTok. Like it's consistently great on Snapchat. Like I have more engagement there than I have anywhere else.
Whoa. Well, who would have known? Okay. Well, that's a very solid tidbit of advice. That we love to hear that. Wow. Well, thank you so much for being on the pod. And maybe one day when everything settles down, I'll come visit all of you guys in LA. And I feel like it would be awesome to do like a round table with everyone out there, because there's so many good ones out there. You guys have a cool flow. I'm a little bit jealous, but I just love New York too much.
Yeah. I love New York too. I love New York though. I like it when I come out there. It's always fun. It's fast paced. The energy is totally different from being here in LA.
Energy,
it's totally
guys.
different. But yeah, thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for being on, guys. Make sure you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, wherever you listen. New episodes every single Monday. Check out all of the links in the show notes below. And until next time, thank you for listening. See you next Monday.